Hello, everybody. Welcome to the R Associates podcast. We have a special little interview. We have, of course, John Congleton, a famous producer, also the front man of Paper Chase, on the podcast this week, doing a little special interview for us. And who else do we have on the podcast this week?
Ethan, Eon997 on Reddit.
Hey, I'm Alex, or Tatios NG on Reddit.
I'm Will, a user Will for Thrill on Reddit.
And do you want to introduce yourself, John?
Hi, I'm John.
So we're extremely happy to have John on the podcast. Probably our biggest guest today. Would you say that, Ethan?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna go straight into it. Let's just, Alex, you want to start off since you had some questions?
All right. So my first question for you, John, was how are you?
I'm good.
Yeah.
I have a cold actually, but I'm okay.
All right. And then I was wondering, like, what project are you most excited about working on right now? I know you're working on a few things, but like, what do you feel really good about?
Well, I'm going to kind of dodge that question slightly and just say that mostly everything I work on is something that I believe in pretty well at this
That's
point.
good.
And, I don't really get involved in much that I don't think is already pretty special. Life's pretty short, so if you can somehow delegate your time to only work on the things that you feel the most close to, that's that's pretty awesome. So I'm trying to basically I'm trying to sort of exploit that, I suppose. I'm in the middle of not in the middle. I'm just wrapping up a record with a really amazing artist named John Grant, who's been around for years. We got like maybe 1 week left working with him, and it's really amazing. And I guess I'm pretty excited that I'll be putting out some of my own music soon again.
Cool.
So I'm excited about that.
All right. Are there any artists or albums you've given up on? Like you were working on it with someone and you just felt like you couldn't do it anymore, or like?
Is somebody having an earthquake?
I think that's Will.
Okay, I'm going to mute his mic for a second.
All right.
Okay.
So the question is, have I ever done a record that I had to bail on?
Yeah. Have you ever started working on something and then just really had to like give up, or even gotten close, and like what happened?
No. The answer is actually no. I have done records where, hey, my cat wants to be on the video. I have done records where there wasn't a lot of chemistry, and there was like we hadn't signed on to do the whole record, so it was sort of like just a polite sort of like maybe finish the record with somebody else, like that kind of thing, but never like never the kind of thing where I was like, I can't handle you. There is one record I can think of that I didn't finish intentionally and told them that I wouldn't finish because the artist was clearly psychotic, but we shouldn't talk about that.
No.
But it's not a band, I assure you.
Yeah. You've worked with like countless artists and on a handful of projects that are considered some of that artist's best work, and I was wondering, like, what are you most proud of? Are there any projects that you just look at and get the sense of feeling like, wow, I worked on that?
Yeah, totally. A lot of the records I do feel that way. I've really been lucky to get to work with like amazing artists, and a lot of that has to do, and maybe this can be like, if anybody's interested in getting into producing, they can sort of put this in their pocket. I mean, main thing is just try to find things that you really believe in, and try to work on it. I basically kind of feel like that's what happened with me and Annie Clark with St. Vincent. Is I met her and I just knew that she was really, really special. So,
yeah.
We just worked together, and everybody's talking about her now, but what people might not realize is we've been grinding it for years. We've been working on cultivating that sound and making a lot of records together, so it certainly wasn't an overnight thing. But to answer your question, there's certain artists like, I think sometimes I find it really amazing that I've gotten to work with people that I just admired for years before I ever, thought I would ever work with them. Like working with somebody like Bill Callahan or the Swans or Sparks. Those are all bands that I listened to for years before all of those bands I listened to before I even started recording,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just really cool to look back and go, not only did I get to work with them, but I got to make, some of their best material with them. So yes, it is really cool. Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's a good transition. Congratulations on your Grammy, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, where were you? Were you in Los Angeles at the awards, or were you just at home?
Yeah, it's really funny. I was just recording a band. I was just working.
Oh yeah. That's awesome.
I was working with a band called Pure Bathing Culture, and I actually found out because Annie texted me.
Yeah, I know. She was like in New Zealand or something, right?
Well, yeah, because we talked about going, and she was already sort of scheduled to be in New Zealand at the time, and she considered moving her things around, but she really couldn't, and I was like, well, I'm not going to go if you're not going. I don't care, And,
Right.
And also, I have to say that we were just sort of like, man, there's no way we're going to win, just no way.
Who else was up again? I'll already forget.
I think a lot of us were surprised. It was
Yeah,
a great one, but it's the Grammys.
Right.
Because I
Only
remember.
me, it's not. We were
sorry,
surprised. That's okay. We were very surprised. So yeah, that was my. It was like I was sitting there just recording, and I get a text from her, and at first I thought she was joking, but then right after she sent me the text, my phone just literally exploded with emails and texts and ringing, and it was insane. It was like it literally was jumping off the ground like a Mexican jumping beat or something, But and then it was unfortunately for Pure Bathing Culture, the whole session just basically screeched to a halt while I was like, hey, thanks, that's nice, thank you, thanks, that's nice, thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's
do you have your trophy now? Do you have?
You know what? I don't actually have it yet. They're supposed to be sending it to me, but apparently they're historic for taking forever to do that.
You can just steal Annie's in the meantime.
I don't even know if Annie has hers.
I think she posted it on Instagram.
Yeah, she got off
Grammy
New
in
York
a
or
taxi
something.
cab.
But I know that they didn't have my address, so that I had to give them my address, and I don't know. But really, I probably will just give it to my dad.
Oh,
That's really
cool.
What did your parents think when they saw that you won the Grammy? What was their text or call?
Well, that's the thing about Grammys is everybody knows what it is.
Yeah.
If I say, I don't know, what's some sort of benchmark of indie rock success? I can't think of it. I don't know what that would be. I don't know, some marginal benchmark. Oh, I know.
Best
it's
music.
Right, there you go. But I've been nominated, a Mercury Prize or something. I know that that's a big deal. That's really cool, but my parents don't. And but a Grammy, it's like, oh wow, you really are doing this.
Yeah.
And it's after 20 years,
So how did your collaborations with Annie Clark work? I know that, aren't you both from Dallas? So did that...
I am from Dallas. She went to high school here, if I remember correctly. I didn't know her. We didn't know each other or anything growing up.
Right.
I met her because she was playing guitar in the Polyphonic Spree when I did a record with them.
Oh, really? She was in that group?
Yeah.
For a very short amount of time, yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, that's
Sort of. To add on to Will's earlier question, what role do you play in getting an artist to where they need to be while making an album? How do you help the whole thing come together as a producer?
Well, I basically as I've said before, I kind of feel like there's a spectrum of how I'm involved, and it can go from the very far spectrum being where the band has basically lamented every single note to death before they ever walk in the studio threshold, And so they sort of just come in, we set up and perform, and I basically just say, "That's good. Stop messing with it." Or the far other end of that spectrum would be like they come in with the artist or the band comes in with almost no ideas, just like a few riffs, and we literally like, okay, make a record. So those are the two extreme spectrums, right? And usually it's falling somewhere in between there, But those two extreme spectrums are the ones that have happened and still happen from time to time. But usually I would say it falls somewhere right in the middle. But I would say that I don't really particularly care what I have to do as long as I'm useful. And that's one of the things, whenever I talk to a band, it's like, will I be useful at all? Like, do you really need me? Or, like, would somebody else be better? I'm very malleable. I don't have, like, a John Congleton experience in the studio. I don't do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Mainly because, well, first of all, that's incredibly boring to me, but more importantly, you have to cater your approach to what the band needs, because all the band dynamics are different. But I think that, like, one thing I heard recently that has kind of resonated in my mind is, like, in general, when you work on music, in order to work on music, I think you need a really generous heart. And so basically, it's all about making something beautiful and being a team when you make a record with me. And I'm not. I might drive the session, quotation marks. I might drive the session just because I've done a bunch of records and I know how to avoid a lot of the pitfalls. But ultimately, we're doing it as a team.
Yeah. Do you do Ethan? Sorry.
No, you go.
All right. Do you do like basically the same thing when you're working with like yourself or in the paper chase, or I don't know. Or do you guys hire a producer or
with Paper
something
Chase
to work with you? Yeah, like
well, Paper Chase has been broken up since
That's true.
2010.
Yeah.
So a lot of stuff has changed for me since then. A lot of the Paper Chase stuff was just recorded by, you could say me. You would say me. I was the only one there. But that wasn't by some sort of, and I had to clarify this with a lot of people. That wasn't necessarily by virtue of me thinking that I could do it the best or anything like that. It was really legitimately just because of it just was easier for us to just whenever I was free for us to just record something.
Yeah.
Rather than me scouring, people to work with and whatnot. And also, we're sort of like, it's not like we lived in Chicago or something where there's an amazing recording engineer down the street that I was like, he'll be amazing. I don't have to worry about a thing,
Yeah.
So it was never about me micromanaging necessarily. It was just sort of like, frankly, kind of a matter of convenience.
Yeah.
Speaking of different ranges of artists that you work with, when you're working on an electronic artist like Shushu or someone like that, or compared to acoustic, more like laid back kind of Bill Callahan, both of them make very emotional, driven music, but they're very different styles. How does your approach change when you're doing that?
Well, there's like a lot of nuance to that question, The approach actually doesn't change. From a technical standpoint, it does. It's very different. But from like basically a globalistic sort of approach, it doesn't change at all. Like with something like Bill Callahan, it's exactly about just capturing a performance in a moment. The stuff I worked on with Bill, I would say almost without exception, they're just live performances. Like literally, the band is just there. I just got some microphones in front of them all, and I press record, and that's what you hear whenever the record comes out.
Yeah.
And we, like with Bill, it was sort of like I remember like sometimes I wish we were an eagle. Like mean, there's not a single vocal performance on that record that wasn't live with the band. I'm pretty sure about that. Like the guitar and the vocal is just right there. That's happening right as I recorded the rest of the band. That essentially is a live record, with the exception of like string overdubs. And so, but like with a record like that, I remember like we would just do a bunch of takes, and it was like Stanley Kubrick or something. It was like we were just waiting for the moment to happen. You know, we're just waiting for the take to go. Okay, that's the take. Whereas with Shoo, that doesn't happen at all. It's like there's a bunch of weird sounds, and we just kind of fly through them. Like we just pick through the sounds really fast, and then like everything is all overdubs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everything is put together in a real synthesis of experience.
I think
I don't know if I answered that question very well.
No, that makes complete sense. I get that.
Okay.
So I've noticed that you have a Blue Velvet poster behind you, and you just referenced Stanley Kubrick. So I'm wondering, does film have a big influence on your art?
Don't forget Ingmar Bergman.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'll be
Kubrick.
perfectly honest. Yeah, I saw The Shining. I'll be honest. I didn't recognize the left poster. And I'm ignorant. But like with the Paper Chase, I feel like you guys had a very cinematic kind of storytelling feel. So I'm wondering how film is an influence on you.
Well, I do love film a lot, and one of the reasons why I love it is because I don't understand it. Because I mean, I love music. I assume all you guys really love music too. You have a podcast about it.
Yeah.
But there's something that happens when you do it for a living and you spend every waking hour working on it. It's like it's hard for the magic not to kind of dwindle.
Right, naturally.
And so one thing that I really love is film because I feel like I can think very cerebrally about it and enjoy all kinds of emotional levels, but at the end of the day, I don't know anything about, like if somebody said direct a film, I wouldn't even know what the first thing to do would be, but I really enjoy like that I can, like if there's a director I really like and I can see a common thread in what he does or she, I just enjoy that as a fan, as an enthusiast, and so that like I kind of get that sort of aspect the way I used to love music when I was a kid, as just a very untainted fan. As far as like film influencing music, I don't know if I could really say that, except for the fact that because I am a big film fan, I'm sure that informs how I think about things in some ways that I probably wouldn't be the guy to judge, but I don't think that there's a direct correlation, honestly.
Okay.
Speaking of being a fan, do you have any albums that have come out so far in 2015 that you are a big fan of, that you've really liked?
Yeah, man. Well, I really love Courtney Barnett's record. I've been listening to that a lot.
We all love it.
Yeah, she's incredible. I feel like I'm skipping something. I'm really good friends with John Darnielle and Mountain Goats, and his new record is really fun and great. I love Kendrick Lamar's record, just like everybody else on the planet.
Oh my god.
I think what I really like about Kendrick Lamar's record is that I just can't believe that it's as popular as it is because it's so fucking weird.
Oh yeah, it's very very conceptual.
It's very conceptual. I like Earl Sweatshirt's record, which I actually worked on.
Really?
But I really like that record.
What did you do on that record?
Yeah, how'd that go?
I mixed the record in an earlier iteration. I don't know if any of my work is on the record or not. Some of it sounds like my work. I don't really know. I haven't.
It really doesn't.
The physical record into it, but I downloaded it, off iTunes. But you guys would be surprised. I don't even own most of the records I've produced or worked on. Nobody remembers to send me anything.
I think I was gonna think maybe it'd be like a thing where like sometimes like certain artists like they don't like looking at their own work because they kind of have like a different mindset. Like maybe they don't enjoy it as much because like I'm that way with some like sometimes I'll write something and I'm like, okay, this is the worst thing I've ever written, and then I'll like share it and I'm like, oh, this is great, and I'm like, well, I mean, I don't know, it's just sort of like this weird thing.
Well, I would say that for my music, my personal music, whenever I'm writing music, like that's exactly the way I am. I have no interest in listening to it or experiencing it once it's done. Yeah. But records I work on, I mean, I get asked this frequently, like if I like to listen to records that I've produced, and the answer is yeah, if it's good, like if I like it, then yeah, which usually I am working on things I like. So usually kind of it's become sort of a ritual of like I'll finish a record, and then I'll approve the master, or me and the band will approve the master, and then I won't listen to it until it comes out. And that seems to be like just enough time for me to gain some perspective and actually have sort of an opinion on it as a listener, as an objective listener.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of good albums you've worked on, I know that.
Nice transition.
That's good. That's good transition, right? Okay, I know at least for me and Matty, it was the album of the year for 2014, "To Be Kind" by Swans.
Yeah.
We're very big fans of it. It's definitely my favorite rock album of the decade so far.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it's a very good work there. So.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna pull up the vinyl real quick.
I named that record.
No, really?
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us that story.
That's great.
Okay. Well, obviously, Michael had a song with "To Be Kind" in the lyrics,
Right.
And so I can't really say I named the record. That's stupid. But
you suggested it to him.
Yeah, he originally. I remember we were talking in the studio like on a break, and I said, "What do you think you're going to name the record?" And he said, "I'm not sure. I was thinking about calling it Screenshot." And I said, "Why?" And he said, well, he has this idea of like the perfect moment in a set. Like his whole thing is sort of like all about like the meditative experience of just repetition and whatnot. And he kind of says he said he wished he could take a screenshot of life whenever that moment hits its pinnacle. And I said, I think that's an amazing idea, but I think screenshot has it has a connotation. Now to like, I mean, like kids would just hear that as like being some sort of computer thing or something, Mm-hmm. And I said, I think that "To Be Kind" would be a beautiful title. And he got up, he said, he kind of nodded his head, he went outside, he smoked a cigarette, and he came back and he sat down and he said, "John, I owe you a Coke. I'm going to name the record that."
That's a good story. So anyways, I saw that you're just the engineer. You're not the producer. Michael
Yeah.
did that. So exactly, do you just press play in the studio? Like, what was your
way to
situation?
diminish me.
No, I don't know a lot
Man,
about
come
production.
on, Will.
No, I don't know a lot about production. So like, what does it mean when he says you were the engineer?
Okay, well, I mean, like I can give you like a little bit of a long-winded answer to that. I mean, I started off as an engineer. I didn't have any desire or really even any understanding of producing when I was younger. I just wanted to record bands, okay? I just liked recording. I liked the way things sounded. And it wasn't until my mid-20s that people started to hire me to produce, because by the time I was 25, I'd already done a squillion records and kind of had sort of like at that point gained a pretty decent insight and understanding to the process. So, people started, and I do have a musical background, so, all these things sort of just, well, point is like my career, quote, really didn't like do anything until I started to produce. I was just recording bands and sort of fledgling. Now with Swans, it's, I mean, ultimately, I don't really feel like there's a strict producer. There wasn't a strict producer whenever I was making those records, but I certainly was not acting like a producer. I was acting like an engineer, meaning to say that like I was trying to solve the problem of trying to wrangle that beast onto a compact disc. I rarely work as strictly an engineer anymore. The last time I did that was with Swans, and the reason I did that was because I love the band, and I was completely attracted to do it regardless. But I mean, I think Michael has such a strong vision for what he wants that he's not going to spend any time arguing with anybody about that, if you know what I mean. It's just like, it's like, this is what I want, and stay the fuck out of my way. And I'm okay with that, I ultimately, I think Michael deserves, excuse me, guys. I think Michael deserves, at this point in his career and his life, to basically be allowed the credence to just go for whatever's in his brain, because his ideas are so epic and over the top that if you can even get like 45% of that idea, then it's a total success, So I mean, really, kind of like the way I look at working on a Swans record would be like, I have a strict job of taking that insanity and rendering it down like a drummer. Like I'm a drummer on the record. I'm the engineer on the record, or whatever,
That's something I want to compliment you about. On screenshot at the very beginning, when that snare comes in at the very begining, that's one of the most crisp drum sounds I've ever heard in my life.
Hey, cool. That's funny because the way that happened was Phil, the drummer, had all this deadening on his snare drum, right? And he was taking it off to tune it. It was completely out of tune. I said, "Don't touch it." I was like, "That sounds horrifying."
One of the best sounds I've ever heard.
Oh, thank you, man. I really like that too. I was I remember when they came in to listen to that take, I was like, "That snare's awesome." I was like, "It's so ugly," It's just so it starts with that bass line and the guitar comes in and then that snare drum comes in. It's just so perfectly out of key with everything. I love it. Yeah.
And also, I'm from DFW too. I was at the show a couple weeks ago.
Oh, I was there.
Oh, you really? You were there too?
Yeah, that was my birthday.
Oh, really? Happy late birthday, I guess. But anyways, obviously it's very different seeing them live and then on the record. It's two completely different beasts. So
totally.
how do you? I mean, obviously you can't give us too many technical answers because we don't quite understand. But how do you get those two different experiences to mesh? I guess.
Oh.
Because I might as well have not ever listened to the band before going to that concert, just because the experience was so much different.
Totally. I think that Michael really likes that. He wants two completely different experiences.
I think that's cool.
Yeah, and not a lot of people do that nowadays. That's kind of an old prog thing, where the show would be completely different. But I mean, essentially, as we were talking before, with somebody like Bill Callahan, I mean, Swans records. I mean, that's essentially the band playing live with just a lot of overdubs. But I mean, what you're hearing is the experience. Those guys are all playing together. And the big challenge with Swans is that Michael really, really he doesn't like headphones at all. And so he wants everybody all in the same room, which is a technical nightmare for me. But he really wants it that way. So it's basically imagine having a vocal mic, 6 feet from the drums. It's really challenging because it's I'm getting more drums in the vocal mic than I am vocals, and and also Michael wants his vocals to be as loud as Iggy Pop, so it's really challenging. So I mean, I can pull the curtain back slightly here, and I've pointed this out to a few people. If you listen to the song "Just a Little Boy," I think it's the second song on the record.
Yes, it is.
If you listen to that song, that's completely live. If you listen to that song, and if you notice, every time Michael's vocals come up, the drum sound changes. Yeah, because I mean, Michael came in as that's the vocal. I'm not going to redo that.
Well, why would he? Because when he comes in with just a little boy, that's one of those terrifying things I've ever heard. 60-year-old Michael Gira.
Yeah.
Basically shouting. I mean, it's wonderful.
I didn't contest it. I was like, you're right. That's awesome. I guess I better figure out how to do this. So if you listen, you can hear the drum sound just kind of change every time he sings. It's just one of those things that couldn't be helped, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
One last question about Swans before we move on to more other stuff. They on your Facebook yesterday they confirmed that they're going into the studio in September.
Mm-hmm.
Can you confirm if you will be participating or not?
Yes, I will.
Oh, very good. All right. Album of the year 2016. Let's go.
Exclusive Ars Against podcast.
I do have to clarify that I will not be involved as much as I was on the last record. I won't be mixing this record, which is
fair.
it's like again it's like under most circumstances I don't really do that much anymore. You know, just work on parts of records, but Michael really wants me to, and I love the Swans, so there we go.
Yeah.
So Ethan, you want to go on your last question?
Yeah. So my favorite band is the Dismemberment Plan.
Oh, cool.
And on your Wikipedia page, it says you worked with them, but I cannot find any evidence of what you worked on them with.
Yeah.
So would you care to shed some light on that?
Yeah, I didn't work with them much. I'd mixed a few things for them. I guess it was like maybe 2 years ago.
With Uncanny Valley?
Mm-hmm. Is that the name of the last record?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if any of it's on that record, though. I don't think it is.
Okay. I was just very confused because I saw the name. I'm like, oh. And then I tried to do some research and nothing. But yeah.
Yeah, very, very, very brief, like working experience with them. But they seem like really nice guys, and we've talked multiple times about doing a record together.
Ooh, I would love more Dismemberment Plan in my life. So thank you for that.
They're really nice guys.
Yeah, I've met them after shows, and they've always been super nice guys. The first thing is that they actually meet people after shows, and then they will talk to you like for a minute. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we should probably move on to a bunch of community members have submitted questions, and I think Matty, you want to read some of them?
I'll handle some of them. Okay, so the first one comes from Siberian Noise on Reddit. Hey John, firstly I listened to Actor once and had to stop it to find who produced it. Fucking incredible. The drums sound on Just the Same but Brand New is what dreams are made of. I haven't stopped listening to it since. Kudos. He also said, I'm an aspiring producer/engineer in the UK, and I wonder what your advice would be to someone in my position. I am just about to graduate with a degree in music production and sound engineering. Have built up quite a portfolio of my work and have worked with some semi-big bands, but still can't seem to get my foot in the door of a studio. I've applied to tons of places, both sides of the Atlantic, offering to work for free on an internship basis, but seems every email gets eaten by the studio email fairy. How did you get your foot in the door?
Wow. Well, first of all, I want to say thanks for the compliment on Actor. I don't remember that drum sound, but thank you. Yeah. Okay. Well, my advice of like how I did it is not analogous to an experience now. Somebody his age in this time, because I got started more than 20 years ago making records. So it's a completely different time. You know, I actually was a staff engineer at a large studio. Those days are just completely gone now. What I would say to him is, I think it's multifaceted. I would say tenaciousness is probably the best thing you can be. If you don't give up, something will eventually click. It really will. But I think also don't have any problem with pride or anything like that when it comes to just having another job. Just get a job as a barista or whatever, and record for fun, because it is fun. And if you try to put all this sort of heaviness on this thing that you're doing that's your passion and it has to be your job, you're going to end up, well, you may end up resenting it. And that's the danger. You know, you don't want to become a cynical prick before you ever get a chance to do it. So I would say don't be afraid to just have a job on the side, and maybe you do. Maybe this is bad advice. And like record for fun. Record your friends. I mean, you can work for free if you want to, but you shouldn't. And just basically try to do work that you feel as passionately as you can about. And it'll get out there, and people will hear it. Mm-hmm. It's really rough out there, though, man. I mean, it's it's really hard to get your foot in the door as recording nowadays. There's so many people ask me this question, but I would just say tenacity is the main thing. If you don't give up, something will eventually click. It will. At least that's the way it was for me. I was recording for a very long time before anybody paid any attention to what I was doing.
Mm-hmm. So this is also the second question. How often do you use the Otari MTR-90 you have at Elmwood? Do you ever track onto it? Thanks. And sorry this was such a long question.
Oh, that just took years for you to read. Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's yeah, I use it all the time.
We have a few more questions. Sure. This is from Ultimate Possum on Reddit. Who are your favorite producers and why?
My favorite producers are the ones that wow, Jesus. I don't really know if I have favorite producers. There's like a handful of dudes that I always seem to think that they do good work. But that doesn't mean that I want to listen to those records necessarily, because ultimately the artist has to be something I'm interested in. I mean, I love, obviously I love Brian Eno, but Brian Eno works mainly with bands I have no interest in. So I can sit there and listen to his work and really admire it and see and hear a steady hand of production. But that's kind of like looking at a painting only from a technical aspect. It needs to resonate with me emotionally. And to be clear, I mean, obviously I love the stuff he does with Bowie and Talking Heads. I'm talking, I don't really have a lot of interest in Coldplay or whatever. But I mean, like I've always really admired people like Flood, who seem to be able to always make a creative recording and an engaging recording, but not superimpose themselves too terribly much. I have a lot of respect for Chad Blake, Tom Elmhurst, Dave Fridman is a good friend of mine. Really creative, amazing records, obviously. I mean, mainly, I guess the only thing that ever makes me uncomfortable in the studio is cliches, and so I think I just listed a bunch of guys who don't stick to cliches, and I guess that would be the reason why I like them. I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody that I love, but yeah.
So this is also another question. I'm also curious how you approach working with a full band or working with a solo artist like Andy Clark. Is it a different process?
Well, we kind of touched on that a little bit. Well, no, I mean, yes, it's definitely a different process. But I mean, it could just as easily be a solo artist who brings a band in and then we record it live. So it doesn't have to be a solo artist that makes it different. Sometimes I work with a band and we do it totally hodgepodgey and piecemeally. I like recording live a lot. I like I like putting a band in a room and just kind of banging it out for a multitude of reasons. Number one, you get the feeling of a band playing live, but also, just as importantly, as a producer or whatever, you can kind of see if there's a problem long before it would be a problem. Like if there's something that really doesn't work about a song, you hear that right away, as opposed to finding that out a week and a half into it when you're doing vocal overdubs or whatever. You're like, this doesn't really work. So essentially, I try to just synthesize the environment of a band in a rehearsal space. They just come in, and the only difference is there's microphones in front of them, and there's somebody saying, "What about this? What about that?" But I try to basically I try not to mess them up. Try to just keep them comfortable.
Yeah.
So we have some. I think we have about 2 more questions. I think.
Cool.
From this one, these 2 are from Reddit Searcher on Reddit, obviously. You produced Dinosaur Bones Shaky Dream, and I was wondering what that experience was like. I spoke to a few members of the band about a year after the album came out, and they had some great things to say about you and how they really pushed themselves to work on their songwriting on the album.
Not a lot of people have asked me about that record. I really, really liked those guys a lot. I thought they were hilarious. Really funny guys, and I'm actually going to be in Toronto in a week, and I hope to see them. I don't remember anything about the record being specifically different or challenging necessarily. So I don't have any anecdotes other than to say that I really liked them a lot as humans and had a lot of fun, like just basically making that record. You know, like just really great sense of humor, a bunch of really twisted dudes.
Mm-hmm. So the other question is also, if you could produce an album for any artist, who would you who would you produce for and why?
Well, I've gotten to work with a lot of people that I've wanted to produce or record already. But I mean, I guess I don't know, man. I would be boring answers. You know, it's like it's not like I would say no to David Bowie. You know,
Yeah.
Right.
you know, I mean, but at the same time, I don't sit around and think about working with David Bowie. You know, it's like I love him, but you know, I wouldn't presume that I would be the guy to work with him. Or I'm kind of more interested in working with bands that nobody's heard of. That you know, if I can make a record that makes a band or helps a band be known, I don't want to say makes, that's stupid. You know, like a band, you know, like when I make a record that people hear the band for the first time, that's kind of more exhilarating.
What are some examples of that, like that you're really proud of that kind of helped blow up a band?
Well, there's a lot of examples. You know, I mean, I would say that for the most part, that's. I mean, you know, like somebody like Angel Olsen. You know, the record I did with her is the record that you know everyone finally paid attention to her, and I mean, I think she's amazing. I just get a lot of fulfillment out of that. You know, like if I can be involved with an artist who's working at a coffee shop before the record comes out, and then they actually can make a living on their record off their music afterwards. That's thrilling for me. But to kind of not to sidestep the question, I mean, I guess I would probably love to. I mean, kind of one of my all-time favorites is Scott Walker. I would love to work with him. I would, you know, I would be over the moon to work with somebody like Roger Waters, you know, who's like kind of got me into music in general, or gave me my real love for high concept music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like if I worked with somebody like that, I could kind of say, well, I think life didn't jip me at all. You know what I mean? I got to have some pretty, you know,
Yeah.
I got to like thank you, good night. I got to, you know, do the ultimate, you know.
Yeah. Seeing Roger perform The Wall live was what got me into music. I went to see him in 9th grade with my dad, and it was just kind of, you know, I don't want to call it a downward spiral from there because it's been great, but, you know, it's kind of just like, you know, yeah.
There are certain people, you know, that when they can, if they connect with The Wall, it's like it changes your life. I believe, you know.
I connected with The Wall last fall, and that was definitely a life-changing experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like really, all concept albums kind of pale in comparison to me.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just like a loose concept, like I don't really count it as a concept album, just because I feel like it has to have an exact plot, just like The Wall, for it to be a concept album at all. Almost.
The thing about The Wall that I could give full dissertations about The Wall. The thing that is really amazing to me is that, I mean, I got into that record when I was probably 11, you know, like really young, and here I am now, and at every stage of my life, that record has meant something. Whenever I listen to it, I can relate to it in some sort of way, you know. I mean, you can, The Wall, the idea of the wall. In the way it's explored as all these different things, there's always something I can relate to, you know, like, you know, the wall is his mother, the wall is the government, the wall is education, the wall is society, the wall is fame, you know, like all these things, you know, and like ultimately what I walk away with with that record is, you know, all the sort of things that sort of exist here in this illusion of life. You can't eat it, you can't fuck it, and it won't get you into heaven. Ultimately, it's all about connecting with people. You know, it has nothing. All of this is bullshit, and it's an illusion. It's all about connecting with somebody, and that's what I get out of that record is connection.
Well.
Mm-hmm. So, Ethan, you say you want to have a question to end on, right?
Yeah, I think. was beautiful. I don't.
Oh, thanks.
I feel like anything I'm gonna say is gonna fail. In comparison,
I definitely heard some of the wall on To Be Kind. Like I don't even know why, but for whatever reason, I did think of Pink Floyd when I listened to Just a Little Boy. Like maybe it's the bass riff.
Well,
Earlier.
don't tell Michael that.
Don't tell Michael.
He does not like the wall.
He's not like really. Well, for whatever reason, I heard Roger Waters on that track.
Well, I mean that's kind of a Roger Waters-y kind of bass line. I could see that. Yeah. But no, he actually loves Pink Floyd, but he likes the earlier stuff. Right. He doesn't like the Roger Waters era stuff.
So I think a good way to end this would be to ask what are your plans for what is your 5-year plan? No, I'm kidding.
Stay alive.
What are you working on? What's going to be coming out in the near future? And I'm also really interested because I love the Paper Chase. I'm wondering.
Oh, thank you.
No problem. I'm wondering what else you'll have coming out personally, musically.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. It's definitely time for me to play music more actively again. I feel that way, and I will be having a record come out. Basically, when people have asked me about it for the last couple of years, it's always sort of a phantom thing where I'm like, yes, I'll put something out, and I wasn't lying, but I didn't have a plan about putting something out until really just recently. So I don't want to. I don't think I should talk too much about it because I don't want to be held to anything. But with any basically the plan right now would be there will be a record in the first quarter of next year that will come out, and it'll be on a label that actually people can find it. It'll be a legitimate release, which is essentially I've just been kind of waiting for the right team and the right sort of environment to put out a record again, because I knew that in my older age, I'm too cynical and too tired to put out a record where nobody cares, So it will be happening, and I'm looking forward to playing music more,
That's awesome.
I'm looking forward to hearing it a lot.
Thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
And hold on, Ethan, I actually have one more question we forgot to ask. We have to ask this to all of our guests because it's a running joke on our subreddit.
Oh my God,
that all indie musicians like Mexican food. So we have to ask, do you like Mexican food, John Congleton?
I like Mexican food okay.
That is exactly how I feel.
That's kind of a down note for the podcast to end on, right there.
Well,
You're
guys,
from Texas, man.
I'm from Texas, exactly. You just nailed it. And I turn on the water faucet and a burrito falls out.
That's what happens at my house. I know for sure. You're in Arlington, at least.
So my point is I have bands from all over the world, and of course they want to eat Mexican food while they're here. So I mean, I like Mexican food, sure, but I have to eat it a lot of times when I would much rather have something healthier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So once again, thank you for coming on the podcast, John. We're extremely grateful to have you on.
You bet.
That was great.
You bet. That's great. Good luck with everything, guys.
Thank you.
That means a lot.
The podcast rules the world.
Yay. So, see you guys.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.